Davie Fogarty has made over $1 billion in e-commerce sales, so I've been studying his interviews to find out what separates him from the rest. He scaled the Uddy to $200 million a year in just 3 years and then became the youngest judge on Shark Tank Australia. And when you look at it, it looks like marketing genius. But when you actually study what he says, the real reason for his scale is not what most founders think. I've built my own 7-figure e-com brand and I've helped other founders go from operator to owner. And the lessons that Davie used to build $1 billion sales is what most brand owners overlook. So in this video, I'm going to break down his 3 biggest systems lessons behind his $1 billion of e-commerce sales, starting with why marketing isn't actually what scales a business.
Someone needs to be in operating the business. It is just so chaotic at the early stages. And this is why I don't want founders to look what I do and then go in year 1, it's like, yeah, finally got traction. Let's talk about it. Let's get a jet. Let's get a jet. It's just like, no, like learn operations. Spend 6 months with an operations mentor and just learn it rather than going to shoot more content, because chances are that we're either marketing constrained or operationally constrained within businesses. Marketing constraint is, can we attract customers? And then operationally constraint is like, if we attracted 1 million customers tomorrow, what's going to break? Or like, can we even handle that? Chances are, if you're a marketing founder and you're wanting to start a personal brand, you're probably already being able to get customers and good at marketing. So go learn the other constraints within the business and fix them so that you can keep scaling the other side of the business.
So that question he asked himself there is brutal when you ask it to yourself. He asked, if we attracted 1 million customers tomorrow, what would break first? But most founders are never asking themselves that question, because early on, marketing initially solves everything. You learn ads, you learn creative, you dial in your offer, and so your revenue will climb. And so it's reinforcing this belief that I'm great at this. But Davie then had to make the distinction that most founders have yet to make, or have never made in some cases. And that's that your business is either marketing constrained or operationally constrained. If you're marketing constrained, it means that you can't attract more customers. If you're operationally constrained, it means that if you did attract them, your business will just collapse. And the operations in your business, it involves inventory management, cash flow, customer service, logistics, leadership, hiring, suppliers, returns. And the truth is that most e-commerce founders are marketing led. So they're good at growth, they're good at content, they're good at ads, but they avoid the operations side of things because it's boring to them. And their skill is in driving customers. But ultimately that scale is going to force you to have to get better at operations. So what Davie is basically saying is that if you're already good at getting customers, stop obsessing over getting better at marketing and start fixing what would actually break at scale. That is the owner shift. Go from operator to owner, because your marketing is going to create spikes, but having proper operations in place is what creates longevity in your business. And if you don't have that longevity in place, ultimately you don't have a business. You're just building momentum around a trend. Which brings us nicely on to clip number 2, which is a bit shorter, but he's telling us here how you'll ultimately stall because of operational incompetence.
I'm a marketer. The Uddy was so strong in marketing, but we were constantly selling out. We had no cash flow management. We had no like good team management or leadership, because all I wanted to do was run ads every single day, which is so stupid.
I love that clip because the level of honesty that Davie shows in this clip, and also in a lot of his interviews, is so rare to hear the honest truth from somebody who's built a business that's done over $1 billion in sales now. But it's so interesting that he was able to look at himself and realize that he just wanted to run ads every single day. And he said that that was stupid. But what he's missing there is that he wasn't focusing on the cash flow management or having proper leadership in place or operational depth. So if you think about that for a second, the Uddy was so strong in marketing, it got into a trend at a great time. It was able to scale very quickly. But internally, he's telling us that it wasn't built for scale. And I think that's where a lot of e-com brands get stuck, because initially the first step is all about getting good at marketing and driving a consistent acquisition channel. But then they have to switch to getting to the next level, which is all about cash flow forecasting and inventory planning and getting the right people on board and having clarity over everyone's roles in the business. It's the unsexy stuff that people don't necessarily exceed at when they get into building their own brand. But if you ignore it, you're going to increase revenue. But when you increase revenue, you're just going to add complexity to your business, which will then just increase stress on you and anyone else in the team. Your margins will shrink and mistakes will happen, and mistakes will happen more quickly. And at that point, if you haven't put these things in place, you as the founder will be working more than you've ever worked before. And you as the founder are going to be working more than you've ever done before. and you'll have less clarity than you've ever had before as well. So Davie was able to scale because his marketing worked so quickly, but the long-term stability of his business had to be built through financial and operational maturity. I think that's the difference there between a product that just trends or a company that lasts. Which brings us on nicely to the lesson 3 that we're going to share today. And that is that Davie talks about how you break through when you actually outgrow yourself.
When I look back at all my 12 failures of business, there's one thing in common, which is me not being able to handle the problem that needed to be handled. And that's kind of obvious. There's no consistent, I launched them all in Australia, or I focused too much on Facebook ads. None of these variables are consistent across anything because you learn. So I have just been constantly trying to develop skills in every single area that I believe is within the constraint. And that's just always been different. And often it's actually hard to find what that next thing that you need to learn is. For me, the main thing was to get people around me that had already learned the next skill to unlock. But it was really in hiring and leadership. It was really in finance and operations. Like I was just so bad at those things.
Same.
So just by devoting myself to learning those things, that's probably where I've grown the most.
The real lesson that I'm taking away from this is that all of his 12 failures had one thing in common, and that was him. It wasn't the platform, it wasn't the product, not the country that he was running ads to, not the ad account. It was that he had hit his skill ceiling. And I think that's the part that founders we don't want to accept or hear, because it means the constraint isn't meta ads, it's not CPMs, it's not competition. Ultimately, it's you as the founder. And then he said that the breakthrough once he realized that was that he needed to upskill himself in hiring or leadership or finance and operations. It wasn't new products, not new marketing hacks. He was able to surround himself by people who had already unlocked the next level and was able to take him through that operator to owner transition. Now, I've been through this transition from being an operator to an owner of my own ecom brand, and I take other founders through that transition by putting operations and team in place so that it's all handled and the business is no longer operationally constrained. And what I've seen is as you go through different revenue levels, you have to put operations in place, otherwise it will constrain you and you won't be able to do all the marketing in the world to grow because your business hasn't got the capacity to handle that situation. So if you think about this, when you're at like 10K months, maybe at that stage you can do everything. You can cross everything off with yourself and you think that you're doing a great job. As soon as you get to 20, maybe 30K a month, ultimately mistakes will happen, standards will slip, you'll be burning out because you're across every area of the business. We have to bring people in to manage certain areas of the business so we can focus on the real needle moving activities. Otherwise, you'll just become the bottleneck in that business. So this is why I think Davie went from being a marketing genius initially to realizing that he needed to become competent in areas that he wasn't so good at. And having that humility is what's going to separate just fast growth initially to lasting scale. So to bring together the lessons that we've shared today, if you zoom out, Davie's $1 billion journey is not about ads. It's about this progression that he went through. Initially, it was about marketing that creates opportunity. Then it was about operations that then determines your survival or not. And then it was about getting leadership in place that's going to ultimately determine the longevity of that brand. Because you don't just grow because of marketing. You're going to stall because of operational incompetence. And you'll only break through when you outgrow yourself. So the question to ask yourself as a brand owner is not always, how do I increase ROAS? The question should be, if I double my revenue tomorrow, what is going to break first? And fix that before scale is ultimately going to force you to, and things are going to get ugly very fast. So Davie did not make $1 billion worth of ecom sales because he was lucky. He made it because he kept evolving from marketer to operator, ultimately to a leader. And if you want to do the same, if you want to build something that truly lasts for the long term, not just a trending product that just spikes, you have to do the same. If this message resonated with you, subscribe and I'll bring out more videos like this, breaking down the lessons from $1 billion founders, because ultimately I think founders, we need perspective, not new skills, creatives, hacks. We need to learn from people who have been there and done that. So with that said, hope you enjoyed the video today and I'll catch you in the next one.